hope you all can hear me. Yeah, good evening, everyone. Thank you for showing up here. Today's talk is Create Serverless Service in Under a Minute. I am Surya Jakotia, product owner for Jazz Open Source. The actual title of my talk was Create Auto-Scaling Highly Available Fault-Tolerant Service in Under a Minute. I was told that's a mouthful, so I went with the shorter version without changing the meaning, which is create serverless service in under a minute. What I hope to do today as part of this talk is you walking away understanding why Andy Jassy and Satya Nadella here believe that the future of cloud applications will have serverless as a key building block. We're going to get there as part of the agenda, which is we're going to talk about what is serverless. But more importantly, why serverless? Why you, if you're building a cloud application, have to start thinking about, can this fit in the serverless model? Within that context, we're going to introduce you to Jazz, where Jazz will help you accelerate adoption of your serverless services. We're going to do that through a series of demos, where we're going to show you what serverless can do, but also like how Jazz is helping you get there. After the demos, you're going to have an opportunity to try these out at your own time. You will have 24 hours, and we're going to share the details of that after this talk. Then I think we'll wrap it up with a roadmap as well as with any Q&A. So let's get started. What is serverless? Serverless is a cloud computing paradigm. It's an evolutionary paradigm where you start building your applications without ever thinking about what servers are they running on, how am I going to provision them, how am I going to manage them. Manage here could be patching, updating, and anything else that you think about when you have servers. So that might be a lot of words. So I think we try to see if we can make sense out of it through a picture here. What you're seeing over here is the cloud evolution. In this picture, we have two main actors, the application owner and the infrastructure provider. What you see on the far left is the on-prem model, which is why I, as an application owner, when I was building this application, I would actually have to procure hardware, provision the host OS, provision the guest OS, and if you're already using containers, you would actually be bringing up those containers too. Now, I, as an application owner, either I'm doing all of that or I'm partnering with a team that does this, right? On the far right, what you're seeing is the serverless model. In the serverless model, I, as an application owner, I'm worrying only about writing my business logic. I no longer have to coordinate with another team or even myself to provision those servers, to think about how am I going to manage them. So when I think about serverless, there are a lot of different reasons you might be thinking about why I should go serverless. But if you're in a conversation with your stakeholders, you're part of a team and you're trying to get the team understand why you need to build this next application using serverless, there are two main things that you want to sell them on. The first one is agility. As we saw in the previous slide, I am not having to worry about provisioning servers, managing, or updating or patching them. So what you're going to see is, as a business owner, you're going to see a direct impact on how quickly can you get to market. If you are a startup or if you are a part of any enterprise, you're going to see that your applications are getting delivered to the market much faster. You're also going to have horizontal scaling, which is out of the box. Horizontal scaling is, I, as an application owner, write this application where it's for one request per second. It's supposed to handle only one request per second. But you get horizontal scaling out of the box. And this, again, based on the cloud provider you go to, this can go all the way to planet scale. So you can go from 1 RPS to 1 million RPS without you having to, again, provision servers anywhere. And that can be a big, huge deal. I think whether you're a startup or you have a new product that you're trying to build, right? where you never have to ever think about how many more machines do I need. High availability and fault tolerance. Now, this is engineers in the room are going to understand how hard of a problem that can be. You get that out of the box. High availability and fault tolerance out of the box has to be a big deal, especially when you're writing applications where your customers depend on it. The second key reason you want to sell your stakeholders on serverless is cost. As we saw in the previous picture, because we were not provisioning the servers, what this also means is I, as a application owner, are never thinking about idle capacity. This applies to your devs, to your non-prod environments, which could be a dev and test environments, right? It could also apply to your prod environments, because the marketing team might have come back and said, we are expecting 1 million RPS on day one, right? Or maybe eventually. Now, with this model, there is no such concept called underutilization. You pay only for what you use, right? And so this can be a huge deal in terms of cost benefit to your business. The second one is you also pay in increments of 100 milliseconds. So if your application is probably getting used only on Fridays or the weekdays, probably for a couple of hours, you get a peak traffic and then the traffic mellows down. This can be a huge, again, savings to your bottom line, because you're paying only in increments of 100 milliseconds. Okay, this sounds fantastic, right? And then you go to like Amazon's website today and you look at create a simple Lambda function. You go through 4 pages of configuration. And this is, you're talking about a simple template model that they have. Now, that's good if you want to play around with it, but that does not help you when you are thinking about, I want to deploy this and I have customers who are depending on it, whether it be a startup or an enterprise, right? You have to think about, how am I managing the code? How am I delivering features? And as you think about some of those aspects, we had a similar problem as we were trying to deploy serverless within T-Mobile, and this is why we built Jazz. So the vision for Jazz is, you write code, we take care of the rest. We take care of the rest while working with the cloud provider. The reason I want to go Jazz is because when you want to deploy services onto serverless, there is a lot of things that you need to worry about, which is, how am I gonna, how am I gonna secure these lambdas? How am I gonna secure these serverless services? How am I gonna monitor them? How do I understand? How do I, debug or troubleshoot issues when those happen? And they are going to happen, right? So Jazz is an open source product that helps you solve a lot of these problems out of the box. When we say open source, you actually would go to github.com/T-Mobile/Jazz. We'll share the link at the end of the demo, so you don't have to remember it. But you just go there. There is a single command line that you would take. You run it in your instance of AWS environment and give it some time, and it provisions for you the entire product. And it's yours to use. It's your instance of Jazz. What you will get at the end of it, once you install it, is the ability to create services, serverless services of types API, function, website, and we just have a POC today, Alexa. You can build an Alexa skill without having to, again, read through documentations, understand what Amazon or Google is asking you to do. Your instance of Jazz will also come with built-in authentication. So you can secure it. You give out a registration code, which what you're going to see at the end of this demo. And using that registration code, only users to whom you have given out, only they can register with that, and they can create their serverless services. You're going to also see templates which are the best practices for Node.js, Java, and Python that the open source product has come up with. These come out of the box, but of course, you can feel free to change this. It also comes with built-in CI/CD that's based on Jenkins. You get the isolated environments logs monitoring. I mean, that's like a lot of words. You don't have to remember these features. You can look up on github.com. We're going to showcase a lot of these as part of the demos. So as a setup to the demo, I just wanted to go through a scenario that hopefully folks here in the room can understand. This could be a startup that you might be working on, or even at an enterprise. There's a new product that, or a new application that you're trying to bring up, right? So there is a new idea that you have, or your team has, and you want to build a POC around it, right? As part of the POC, the usual setup is going to look something like this, right? I'm going to procure a machine. This could still be a desktop sitting under your desk, but you still have a machine where you're going to be hosting this application, right? You're going to be mapping out dependencies for if you're going to be using Node.js, Python, or Java, right? You're going to be patching and updating your machine, right? Making sure that there are no security vulnerabilities there, right? And you're in compliance. You're going to be securing your app. Then you're going to be writing code, right? You're going to write your code to get this POC working. And then you're going to build it, and then you're going to deploy it. Then you're going to iterate over this, making sure that your POC is ready, is an MVP, right? You're showing it to potential customers. You're trying to help them understand like what this application can do, right? And you get sign-off. You get sign-off from your stakeholders. You try to take it to a pre-prod environment or a staging environment. You do very similar things that you might have done on a POC, but hopefully this is no longer running under your desktop, right? You might have procured actual machines there. You still go through the same, write code, build, deploy. But now it's time for you to actually ship it to real customers. And when you're thinking about shipping it to real customers, there is a whole set of new problems that you have to deal with, or at least you need to make your business understand, and probably you're going to go through steps to say provision for peak and anticipated loads. What is the peak load that we're expecting, right? How many machines do I need to handle this? You're going to do some kind of a load testing, understand the numbers. You're going to also plan for traffic spikes. Maybe you're building an app for Black Friday, right? You have to understand like what kind of traffic can I expect on Black Friday. You're going to plan for it. Plan here could be either you're procuring those machines ahead of time, or weeks ahead. You make them sit there, make sure that it's all ready before you start taking the Black Friday kind of traffic. And then you're doing very similar steps again in your prod environments, but now your footprint is much higher. So now what we're going to do is we're going to try to mimic a very similar scenario. I need probably a web application, right? For the web application, I need a website that I need to host. I probably will have an API layer where I'm writing my API code, and I might have some backend processing. It's taking orders. I have to fulfill these orders behind the scenes. So we're going to try to see how we're going to do this as part of a demo. So the demo is going to be using Jazz. So before we jump into the demo, I'm just going to talk about a few things in Jazz. So Jazz, again, is an open source product that allows you to create these serverless services with the click of a button. And that's the whole theme of this talk, right? Under a minute. When you install Jazz the very first time, right, you're going to get at the end of it a URL that's going to look similar to this. We host it directly in CloudFront. You're going to take that URL, and then you OK, there you go. So once you log in, this was my earlier provisioned account, so you're seeing a lot of services, right? So again, for the demo, what we want is I want a web application. I need an API. So I'm just going to go ahead and say, so let me just first build a website, which is a web application. I'm just going to say my awesome app. Yeah. So that's my namespace. Namespace is just a construct in Jazz. It's a placeholder, but you can think about this could be your product name or team name. I'm just going to give it a name, like the service name, which could be a website name. I'm just going to call it my web app, right? And I just have to hit submit. So once I hit submit, what Jazz has now done is it has taken my input and it's going ahead and creating a website for me that is provisioned, that is running on serverless. So again, what does that mean? It can take from 1 request per second all the way to planet scale, and it's doing that behind the scenes. So we're just going to wait for that to get finished. It just creation started. In the meanwhile, we're just going to, because I need an API too, I'm just going to create that too. My awesome app, yeah, my API. I have a choice here. I can build it using Node.js, Java, Python. I'm just going to use Node.js, and I'm going to click on submit. So what just happened over there is it's trying to create these 2 services. I'm just going to refresh the page just to see where they are. So you're going to see the workflow change from creation started to creation completed. So we're just going to wait for that to get done. In the meanwhile, we're just going to also showcase one of the other features that we just added, which is Alexa, right? As part of this, now what you can do within Jazz, this is still a proof of concept, but you're going to see this become available over probably the next couple of weeks in the open source version of Jazz, is you can choose voice, which is going to be Alexa device, right? And I can provision, or I can enable this app, my Alexa app there. I'm going to just give it my awesome app, and I might just say customer service, right? It's asking me for an invocation name without going into a lot of details about what Alexa is, because that's not the demo is about. So I'm just going to assume folks know what an invocation name is, but at the end of the day, this is how you invoke Alexa to say, Alexa, open this app. So I'm just going to give it Jazz demo. I'm just going to, yeah, my app one, or my app, and utterances is for you to help Alexa know how does a customer interact with it. So I'm just going to say, what is my app health. Okay, I just see that my web app is become active. So it went from creation started, I think it already went to creation completed and active. So let's try to explore that more. What does active mean? So I see a few things over here. I see a green here saying it's for prod. So let's see what happened here. Okay, I can click on that. It actually gives me a link to the website. So what I'm doing over here is I'm just going to looking at the repo that gets created for what Jazz does there. So what Jazz did, sorry, what Jazz did over here is for my web app, it actually created a repo, and so it did for my API too. So we're just going to try to explore those, and I'm just trying to pick my name. I have one too many over here, but my awesome app, my awesome API, right? So I created my awesome web app, and I also created my awesome API. So what you're seeing over here is I just gave it a name, a namespace, and a service name. Behind the scenes, Jazz went ahead and provisioned, deployed your app to prod, but more importantly, it gave to me as a developer a placeholder that is the Git repository for me to start writing my code. Now, if you think about, if you contrast this with scenarios that you would see in your typical enterprise, right? I just had an idea. I wanted to write the code for it. You usually would have to think about a lot of other things. Right now, within a minute, you actually had a way for you to start writing this application. So I can go in here, let's get this clone. So I'm just going to clone this repository. Okay. What I can do is I can just clone that repo, and too many of them open, but this is my web app, right? I can now start writing code in my web app to say hello from Jazz, right? This comes with a default template, but we're just going to say hello from Jazz. No. Right, and I, as a developer, I'm just going to do get status, right? And my awesome web app, right? Get status, get add app index.html, get commit, update, and get push, right? So something happened over here. Jazz said, no, you cannot publish this to master. Oh, this is again Jazz coming with best practices. Usually, right, when you're writing an app that is being pushed to your customers, you want to go through a validation process. You're going to write your feature in your test environment, right, and you're going to validate that it is working before you push it to prod. Now, this best practice is built into Jazz. So what we're going to do here is, for the sake of the demo, I'm just going to disable that, which is again not something that we recommend. But just for this demo, I'm just going to disable it so that we can do a git push again. Okay, so now I have just made a change to my web application that Jazz gave as a best practice template. I started writing code in there, right, and it's been pushed. So now what Jazz behind the scenes is going to do is it's going to pick up those changes. It's going to do a CI/CD. It's going to build that application, deploy it to the cloud, and you're going to see all of that active within here. At the same time, let's try to also explore and see what would I do if I were writing a new feature within Jazz. So I would come in here and I would just create a new feature branch F1, right? So as soon as you create a feature branch F1, you see that Jazz automatically detected it. I created a feature branch F1 in my Git repo. Jazz is already monitoring that. And it said, OK, looks like you want to develop a feature F1. It picked it up. And not only has it picked it up, it's now going to try to build that and deploy that to the cloud. And you're going to get a different environment altogether. Now think about that, what this means to you when you have a multi-developer scenarios, right? You're working on a team of more than 2 people, right? They are all developing different part of the features, right? You're going to create your own branches, and you're going to start iterating over there, making sure that the business requirements are being met as to how I'm developing this web application, right? So you're going to see all of that built into Jazz. So we're just going to go back to the API and see where that is. So it looks like my API is stuck there, and I don't know what happened there. So we're going to try again and see if I can create another API, or maybe I think I have a different one, so I think we're just going to use that to explore. So I created an API earlier, so we're just going to explore that, right? So when I write a new API, it deploys it to a prod environment, and what you see over here is there is an endpoint that Jazz is giving me. So I can copy that endpoint, and you're going to see that this is a real endpoint that actually, and just to prove the point, right, it's just echoing out the input values, right? I passed in query parameters saying a equal to alpha and b equal to bar. It's echoing out those values. But the key over here is this is an actual API that you can now start writing code and start using it within your web application, could be your mobile application, or if you're offering API as a service, right? Not only that, you also get this API currently is taking 1 request per second, but it can go to planet scale. It can go to planet scale without you ever having to provision any more machines. And that, I think, is the promise of serverless. So we did an API, we did we built a website. Now you can think about, like, my website, I'm going to have tabs. For each of the tab, I'm invoking an API that's pulling the data together and showcasing it, right? A very similar concept, like, as we were showing in the website case, I have a different API right now because I went into a feature branch. Earlier I clicked on the prod one. Now there is a feature branch F2. I can click on it. There is an active API over here. I can copy it, and you would see that these APIs are different. The reason you are able to say it is I actually modified the code, right? This API, they are based out of the same API source code, right? But they're two different branches. Here I'm returning data called data foobar. Here I'm returning data called config key val, but they are based out of the same one. So I was able to build a website. I was able to build an API too. We're just going to go and see what's up with my Alexa service, which is, I called it customer service. We can click on this Git repo, and what you see. Let me clone it so that I think it looks better in VS Code. So a couple of things I want to point out. The web app has an app, CSS, fonts, images structure because, of course, it's a web app. But if you look at the Alexa one, right, it has model.json. This is again things that you think about when you're developing an Alexa device, right? It has a model.json. I can start adding new services, new intents to Alexa right here, right? Again, going back to the same concept that we built in Jazz. You write code, we take care of the rest. You just go ahead, you went ahead and created you clicked on create service, you gave us the metadata, Jazz stores it away, and from there on, Jazz configures your Alexa device, and we're going to see a demo of that. You're going to also see that the templates are different because it's an Alexa. So because it's Alexa, we actually do a lot of groundwork for you. Like, it needs a launch request handler, it needs fallback handler, it needs a help handler. And because I said my app, it actually created a my app handler for you. So now as a developer, I can just start writing my code here without having to configure anything else, right? And if I start doing git push right now, it will start activating. My Alexa app is going to be active. So we'll look at a demo of that with an app that I created earlier. And I'm just going to show the code so that we know it's for real. Okay. So this is the app that I created earlier. I created a book handler. So this app, all it is doing is I have a Jazz demo skill that I have just written. It's a custom skill, and within that skill, all what I'm expecting Alexa to be able to do is, I'm just going to open the model.json. It being able to respond to queries like these. Can you guys see it? Let me increase the font. Okay. Okay, 12 is not good enough, maybe 16. Let's see. Okay, is it better? Okay. Okay. So what we're going to see is Alexa being able to pick up the nuances over here as to what I'm asking it. So I'm just going to try this out. Alexa, open Jazz demo.
Welcome to Jazz demo. I can help with test. Now, what can I help you with?
Okay, I think I just found a bug.
I can help with Jazz serverless related stuff like users.
So the pre-configured template comes with what I asked, what is the invocation name I gave to Alexa, and I called it test because I was testing it. So I added the book, but what I did not change was the welcome message. So I'm just going to call it books. And maybe while I'm at that, I realize it comes with pre-configured configuration values. So instead of it saying welcome to Jazz demo, I can help with book. I want it to say I can help with things like book authors. Okay, and we're just going to try to test L1. Okay, get status, get def. Okay, those are the only two main changes I made. We're going to do again get status, get add config, prod config, index.js, get commit, fix bug with message, right, get push. And as part of that, what Alexa would be doing is it's going to be sending me once it's deployed. So we're just going to wait for that to finish, and it should just take less than a minute. I mean, it's picking up the changes, it's deploying it to the cloud. My Alexa service is already configured to it. Hopefully, Alexa updates saying, you know, it should not say any more test. It should just say authors. I can help you with book authors. So waiting for it to finish. Alexa, open Jazz demo.
Welcome to Jazz demo. I can help with things like books authors. Now, what can I help you with?
What are some of the books authored by Bill Gates?
Here are some books authored by Bill Gates. Bill Gates Speaks, Business at the Speed of Thought, The Road Ahead.
Thank you, Alexa. Yeah, so this is how easy it can be for you to actually write your Alexa apps. This is how easy it can be for you to start writing your APIs, APIs that scale from 1 RPS all the way to planet scale. This is how easy it can be for you to write your websites. The easy part that we're talking about over here is you as a developer no longer thinking about how is this that where am I going to be hosting it? How is it that I'm going to be deploying to it and stuff? Because partnering with the cloud providers, Jazz helps solve the problems so that developers can just write code and we take care of the rest. So with that, we're going to switch back to the slides, and I'm just going to see if I can show you the API logs. I mean, that's going to see if it has. Okay, there you go. So now Jazz has not only solved the problem of deployment, it's actually even streaming all those logs back to the application, back to Jazz. Now, if you think about that to you as a developer, you are operating only within VS Code or your Git repository, and for the corner cases about troubleshooting, debugging, you just go to Jazz, right? And it helps you with all that context data. I have this brilliant idea for a startup. I can start writing code and actually get quick feedback about whether this product is going to work or not, right? Without you having to spend time on all these other things. So if you think about it, what has happened with Jazz is you are just writing code. Everything else has been taken care of for you. So with that, I think I'm just going to wrap it up. The next steps are for you to try out Jazz. So that's your link for it. You just go to try.timo.jazz.net. Hopefully, you guys get the hyphen there right. try.timo-jazz.net. The registration code is Jazz16. The product, as I was saying, is open source. So you can start contributing today. You can start watching it, starting the project. If you like what you see, we're trying to build a community around it. We already have startups and enterprises installing it within their premises, but there is a long road ahead, and we want to build a community around this so that the community can take care of this product. right? For other T-Mobile open source projects, you can go to opensource.tmobile.com.